how you feel you look can often impact your confidence.
That is so true. And actually, many people can find that the self-esteem is negatively impacted by unsightly and sometimes itchy and painful varicose veins and thread veins.
And that's why we're actually so pleased to share that this episode is being sponsored by veincenter.com. And they're able to help those listeners who find that they have to hide the legs through summer months or even have to cover their facial thread veins with makeup.
If that's you, just take a look at veincenter.com.
It's one of the most painful things when someone you trust lets you down.
Relationships can be the most exciting and the most wonderful thing, but equally, relationships can break you, can make you feel that you're not good enough and really affect your self-esteem. And I think when you really trust somebody and then they do something to hurt you, it's really difficult to not think, what did I do to deserve that?
Yeah. I think that is the go-to, that you just personalise it and think, I've done something wrong, without looking at the big picture. And there's quite a few sayings about this, and there's 3 different versions of it, but I'll share them all. Dolly Parton said, yeah.
He said, I'll share them all.
No, it's exciting.
I can quote. Yeah, I've been waiting to quote a bit of Dolly for a while, right? And Dolly Parton said, right, when someone shows you their true colours, believe them, right? But there's 2 other versions. When someone shows you the true colours, don't become colourblind. Or
what if you already are?
Yeah, well, that's a problem, isn't it? Or don't try and paint them over in a colour that you like, right? So, but it's fact, because, you know, when someone shows you who they are, because when we enter a relationship, we're never our relaxed selves. We're always on our guard. We always want to impress someone. So we have this bit of a facade, really, and then the longer we spend with someone, that starts to chip away and you see the real person. And when someone actually shows that to you, if it's not what you thought it was and not what you like, don't blame yourself, right? See it for what it is.
Yeah.
I do think, though, that when somebody isn't, and I really love that analogy, and going back to you, Liv, if they're colourblind, fortunately, there are 3 options to that saying.
That's true.
So
whichever you like.
whichever one. But yeah, I do think that when somebody does start to show you the true colours, you ignore that bit and you try and make them be who you want them to be, or you default back to what you thought of them when you first met them, before you could see the true colours. Yeah,
because you get the new evidence and then you go, no, they won't do that.
Well, there is actually some science in that.
Okay.
Very early on in the episode today, we're going to go into Science Corner. But yeah, so there's something called the halo and horn effect, which is basically, they might have heard of the halo effect, less so the horn effect. But basically, I mean, let's say you've all been in this situation, I'm sure you guys have as well, where you see something that you don't like in someone, right? And then that's it. It's like, you can't stand them. It irritates the hell out of you. People get it in work, don't they, with colleagues, where they see something in a colleague.
A habit.
Or they have a word that they say constantly. Or they clack the keyboard, or they eat and chew in a noisy way.
But then once you see it, you can't stop seeing it. Yeah. It's like, oh my God. And then you think, why did I never see it? And in the same way, I think you get that in a relationship. So you've heard that phrase, like the ick. When you get the ick, that's it. You can't get rid of it. And, you know, we hear it all the time, and we've been through it ourselves, you know, I'm sure in past relationships, where you go into a relationship, everything's great, and then you can start to realise that things aren't right. I've been in this situation where you kind of go, I know it's not right, but you don't want it to not be right. So you just kind of ignore it, and you keep ignoring it, and then there's one day where suddenly you acknowledge it and you see it, that's it.
When that ickometer,
that's it.
When it overflows.
Through the roof.
There is no going back. So that is what we call the horn effect, that once you see or acknowledge something negative in someone, then we tend to do this kind of like, we make them even worse than they are, like the devil, that's where the words horn comes from. It's like we see them like everything that they do irritates us, everything's wrong, wrong. And even things that probably wouldn't bother us otherwise now suddenly bother us, and we see them, in that way. Whereas the halo effect is the opposite. And that's where when you see something good in someone, and you want to see something good in someone, and you get a good first impression, you immediately think they're even better than they are, right? So we think that everything they do is amazing, and we can get that kind of like, oh my God, this is the best person ever. Like when you get into a new relationship.
Which would make sense when people have low self-esteem. And just to sort of say, I would like to talk in this episode not just about romantic relationships, but I want to talk about the relationships with friends. I want to talk about the relationship with family, because that's a big one which I want to come back to, and also relationship with neighbours and work colleagues. I think that
and the most important one, the relationship with ourselves.
Absolutely. So I think I'd like to cover all those. But just going back to relationships for a second, and you're saying about the halo effect, I think when you are in a relationship, a romantic relationship, if you have low self-esteem, then that level of what's good doesn't have to be that great.
Yeah. As
a comparison.
I don't even think that you can be aware of it and put up with it. Sometimes I think if you so don't want to see something and you're so grateful to be someone's friend, it's very easy to overlook a lot of things. I mean, that's happened with me when I was at uni and I first went there, the first semester really. I was just so desperate to find friends, especially being in the US, being across the Atlantic. I was so far from home that I was just desperate to have some connection and find some people. And when I finally found people that I was kind of friendly with, I latched onto them. I was so grateful for that I overlooked a lot of things.
But you would do that halo effect with them then, because straight away you're desperate for a friend, you get one, so straight away you're like, oh my God, this is amazing, and so you give them that halo, right? You make them seem better than they are, and therefore anything that they do that you might not like, you just kind of brush it under the carpet, because like you said, you're grateful to have a friend. And I think that's what we really, really do. And we often make the mistake of thinking that if we don't have success in relationships, friendships, that it has to be us, right? If you've had relationship failures, there must be something wrong with me. Or if you've had friendship failures, there must be something wrong with me. But actually, when you realize that sometimes the people that have the most friends, in an ironic sense, can be those ones that are doing that halo effect because they're just desperate to have friends. So they're tolerating things that they shouldn't. And that's why they might seem to have so many friends.
I think the key to why Hunter's relationships failed in that regard is because, the key word, desperate. He was desperate to get some friends, whereas, the answer to that is just be who you are. I don't know anyone that's ever said a bad word about you, Hunter. Everybody thinks you're amazing, right? But the person that didn't think you were amazing was you, right? So you're going over there and using the word desperate as opposed to just being yourself and let people gravitate to you, which they naturally do. I've seen that over the years.
I just felt like I was so grateful to have someone. I was so lucky to be in a situation that I
And if I
ignored
could,
things, really.
and if I could add in that, I think that because you were desperate to just be in some sort of a friendship circle, because it is really lonely, going for lunch on your own, going for dinner on your own.
I was just going to say, I don't want to use that word desperate can really sound like a negative, but I think we're all desperate for connections in life because we're human beings, we're social beings, and that is, the way that we are as humans. We're desperate for connections, and I think that, it shouldn't be seen as a bad thing if you are someone that is desperate to be in a relationship or desperate to have a friendship. It doesn't come from a bad place. It's just that we like to have those connections, but sometimes we can, as a result of being desperate to have those connections, we can drop our standards and what we need in friends.
It makes you vulnerable.
And that's what
exactly,
And that was you, Hunter. I think you compromised your standards, and this is a lot of people. We compromise our standards. You did it because you were vulnerable and lonely and far away from home.
I just want to point out as well that I'm not saying that these people are bad people or anything like that. I think it's more, when you're saying keep to your standards, it's more your standards that work for you. There's a lot of things that we do, have a lot of behaviours and things that we value are going to be different for everyone. And really finding friends is about finding the people that work with you. And then when you find people that work with you, you're going to be a lot happier. You're going to get a lot more from the relationship. So it's not necessarily thinking that they're not good on things they're doing. It's more having standards so you get the most from those friendships and you find people that you can trust the most and the best for you, really.
Interestingly, that's sort of just what you're saying there, just when we think about, like relationships. So when people go into relationships, right, people will go into relationships looking for different things, right? So some people will want to find a life partner. Some people will just want to, have a casual relationship, right? Some people will want short-term, some want long-term, some want open relationships, some want, monogamous relationships, right? And that's fine. Everyone does what they want to do and they set that out. But with friendships, we don't really seem to have that set out in the same way, right? We don't go into a friendship going like, right, I want a friend that is going to be with me long term. Or, some people want short term friendships. Some people want friendships that just serve a need in that moment because they feel lonely. And everyone's got different needs in terms of all types of relationships, what they want. And sometimes those just don't match up with us.
So, and that falls right into what I always say is that, first of all, we all have criteria, even if we don't realise what that is, which we'll come back to. But I think it also comes back to my analogy. And my analogy is that friendships, relationships, they are like shoes. And in that, we often will see a pair of shoes that look amazing, but try and walk in them for any length of time, and they give you blisters. Just like that friend relationship, looks great. You try them for a little bit, and they start giving you blisters and causing you pain. Then you've got some shoes that are just fashionable for the short term, but then they go out of fashion. You've also got the shoes that look great with some outfits, but not with others, that are okay for a night out, but not for a sat on the sofa, cozying up to a good movie. Then you've got the pair that are, they're just really, really comfortable. They need a bit of effort, and most relationships do. I think most relationships, good relationships, are that comfortable pair of shoes. However, you do still need to heal them. You do still have to look after them, and there's work that has to be done. And then there's some shoes that, just are with you, are that comfy pair of slippers where they just feel amazing constantly, no matter what. So, and I think this is where relationships come in. And because we all have different taste in fashion, we also have different taste in friends, relationships.
Yeah. And that's totally fine. There's
criteria comes in.
And I think you've also got to have, you've got to accept that relationships move on as well. Most relationships are not forever. And, I was just thinking while you were talking about that when I used to come home from school, I'd go in the park, which was really close to our house, and we'd play football. And there were 4 schools in the area, and people from different schools, and we'd make teams up and we'd play football pretty much every night on the park. And I was just thinking, and there was one day when that game finished and I went home and I never played football again, right? But I never knew that I would never see a lot of those people again. The relationship then finished at that point, but I never actually acknowledged that, well, that's it, that's the last time I'm playing, because you just change and you move on in life.
Adapt.
And I wonder if they ever thought that. I wonder if anyone listening thought about it, when you used to play with your group of friends and then it stopped, that one day that you never went back and saw them all.
And those friends could think that it was something that they did or could beat themselves up over it, whereas for you it was just that you might have got a girlfriend who obviously wouldn't have been as nice as me.
A very uncomfy pair of shoes.
And a very tacky, falling apart, ugly pair of shoes. No, I'm not joking, but that's what happens.
Yeah, it's funny. Life changes, and just considering how many of those people that obviously all those people eventually left and had the last game of football together, and how they perceive that game. Because I moved on for whatever reason it was, never looked back and never thought about those other people. And I mean, obviously, it's a bit different these days because now we've all got phones and everyone. If we're looking at that now, everyone on that pitch playing football would have a phone.
You'd all be on a WhatsApp group as well, wouldn't you? Who's playing footy tonight?
Football lads.
Yeah, there was none of that then. So when the last time that happened, that was the last time it happened.
Interesting though, that's just made me think of something there, because you've said about phones. Yeah. And that's one thing. So I would class myself as a very loyal friend, but try and contact me and I'm the worst, right? I have such a busy life that, I have some friends that will text each other all the time. I cannot do that. I have so much going on, right? We work so hard. I've got constantly things in my life happening, and work and therapy and everything that we do takes up such a big part of that.
Yeah.
That I'm not, see me face to face, and I love it. But texting, I'm just not great at it, right? I just don't have the time to commit that. So let's say potentially, I always think about that with my friends, that I hope they don't think that, I don't care. I mean, I've got a lovely friend, Molly, who I absolutely adore. And funnily enough, she literally just texted me this morning and said, I just wanted to check in with you, because she knew that I was struggling with migraines a few weeks ago. And she messaged me and just said, I know you were struggling with migraines, and I just wanted to check in and see how you've been. And that so meant a lot to me, because she's pregnant at the moment. So she's really busy with everything she's got going on. I'm really busy with work. And, we have that relationship that I know I don't need to text her, multiple times a day. And actually, when we were younger, we did, because I've known her for years. And when we were young, and our relationships kind of developed, because when we were kids, we would text all the time because we had the time to do so. And now, she's got her things going on, I've got mine. But the fact that, she sent me that text today just really meant a lot to me, because we're there for each other.
So are you the same as me? Because I'm going to say one of my bad habits here, and I'm confessing here that, and I've got some lovely friends in my life that I get a text off someone, one of my friends, and I'll read it and it'll make me smile or make me laugh or something. I think that's great. And then I'm doing something else and I forgot about the text.
I'm terrible for that as well.
and then a week later I think, I didn't go back to that text. It was such a nice
But
thing.
then you worry about not wanting to make them feel that they're not important.
And they might do. That's the thing is.
That's what I was going to say, how important this is. Because, I mean, if you, on the surface of that friend might look at it and go, oh, she's not texting me back in 2 weeks. Have I done something wrong? Is it something because of me? Have I said something wrong? Whatever.
Or just something not that important.
Yeah, I mean, and also there's a lot of studies that show that we are much more likely, if that happens, to blame ourselves and look at ourselves and blame ourselves rather than the situation that person's in and think that it's our fault, rather than maybe it's something going on in their life and maybe it's something like that. It's kind of, I think it's just a bit of human nature related
Is that
to do
egocentric
that.
bias?
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
With your big words,
I know.
egocentric
Social psych.
bias.
Yeah.
But it's just really important to realise that even if sometimes a friend's been off, whatever, a lot of the time it's nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And just, I'm exactly the same. I mean,
Really?
I know you wouldn't know, would you? You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know.
It's so funny that because I text you all the time when you're in America and you always respond.
Yeah, within minutes. No, I have the capacity to reply to about 3 people.
Can I just, for
quickly.
our listeners out there, that was a sarcastic
It was very
comment.
sarcastic.
That
Yeah.
never text back.
I'd say
Excuse me, can I
4
just-
to 5 business days is my response time.
That's actually very accurate. But
Maybe you should have that as a disclaimer
should put that in
on
your
the bottom
Instagram
of your
bio.
text.
Oh yeah.
That's very funny.
you will receive a reply within 4 to 5
Yeah.
minutes.
Business days,
Can I
yeah.
point out though that I honestly, like, I send him the best reels on Instagram. I'm hilarious, right? I really am. And I send him some hilarious reels. Like, I'm crying laughing. And he didn't reply to me. And then he had the audacity to say to me the other week, oh, you've sent me so many now. I'm like not caught them up with them, so just start fresh. You missed them all.
But do you know
all
what
the
I do?
reels that I put time and energy into
There's
sending.
things that I've seen that I know you'd like, and I go to send it to you, and I'd be like, oh, it's 10 plus notifications. I can't send it now. It's like, because I have to address the fact I've
you've
missed
gotta
out on all these
watch
other
all
ones.
10.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This
So I
is
just
like
don't.
a confessional, isn't
Honestly,
it?
and then
Yeah.
there's a famous reel of Kim Kardashian where she's going like, if you knew what it was like to have a full-time job and you knew what it was like to take it seriously. And I sent it to him and was like, this is me with my reels. I take it very seriously, you know? And like, he doesn't even watch them.
No.
Yeah,
And
but
now I've just realised I'm contradicting myself because all my poor friends that have heard me just say, I have no time to text them. And then I'm going, I'm sending Hunter 10, 15 reels on Instagram.
Yeah, just so long as there's the time difference though, isn't there?
There is.
Because when your friends are in bed, Hunter's just like looking at his stuff.
That is true. That is true. But my point being in all that is criteria and the fact that, like Hunter's saying there, we often take it personally. We have that egocentric bias, which is basically the fact we see the world through our own eyes. And we very, very rarely, and it's such a good skill to have, and this is such a great tip that I give anyone, is to take yourself out of your own shoes and put yourself into someone else's. And it is such a hard thing to do, but it's honestly one of the best things is to consider other people's perspective.
I think, and I think if we always go, right, okay, if it wasn't my fault, what else could it be? I think that would put you in better stead of understanding why a friend hasn't called you or a partner or something.
Also, we're really bad at reading people as well. There's this
But we
thing
think
called
we're good at it,
We think
but
we're
we're
great at
not.
it. We think we're
Yeah.
amazing at it. There's this thing called the spotlight effect where, one, we think everyone's looking at us, and also we're very bad at judging what other people are doing because of that. So even if you think your friends are annoyed at you and they're not replying to it, and then you meet up with them and it's like, oh, I think they're being off with me. Really, you're probably just in your own head and you're thinking about yourself and you're thinking, again, through your own eyes, and in reality, they've got so much going on in their lives that you don't know about. It's more likely to be the circumstances rather than you, but also so bad at reading people and judging how they're feeling just on the surface.
And they're probably thinking about themselves because they've got the egocentric
100%.
bias as well, so they're not even thinking about us.
You know what's a good solution to that I would now like to share, and for everyone listening, is to make a list of your friends, and you know the people that you really care about, and just send them a text, right? And just out of the blue, nothing else, just saying, just thinking about you, I just want to know I really love you, or I really care about you, and I'm glad that you're there for me.
Can I say I did that about a month ago, and and it's a great idea. It made me feel great. However, if you don't get everybody replying, don't expect everybody to reply, I suppose, is the advice I'd give, because
No, you're not expecting a reply. It's just
and
a
not everybody
statement.
replied to me, but I did put in there, please, I'm not expecting a reply, and I just want you to know this. And I think it's really important to put that, because if someone doesn't reply, then you go, oh, well, there you go.
Well,
I said that, and they didn't even give me the time of day. But quite often, that it is just a kind gesture that you should do. But something I also think is really important is to consider your criteria, because and I'd like to just sort of expand on that a little bit, because your criteria won't necessarily meet with somebody else's. So you might will have criteria of what it is to be a friend. You will have criteria that's personal to you, what it is to be a partner, a brother, sister, mother, father, daughter.
Let me give you a good example of that, because so we all have different criteria for everything that we want in life, and when my dad passed away and my mum was on her own, and you know, you shouldn't be on your own in life, and it's difficult. And we live quite a distance away from her, so even though I'd ring her every day, it's not like being able to spend quality time with someone. And I said to my mum many times, I said, look, please consider having a new, not a partner, or your partner if you want, but not, or a companion. And she was like so adamant, no one will ever replace your dad. And I'm like, I'm not asking you to replace my dad, no one will ever do that. But just consider having a partner, someone to spend time with. And so, and she said, oh, I don't know, I'll think about it. So anyway, we did this exercise with her, just saying, right, what would your criteria be for someone who could be a companion for you? And, and this is a great exercise for anyone to do.
We said companion or good friend, actually.
Yeah, is write down what you would, I think we did both. I think we said, right, if you're looking for a companion, how many things would you need? If you're looking for a friend, what would be important to you? And that was it. So we did the exercise, and me and Eva did the exercise. And for a friend, for me, it was being loyal and telling the truth. That was it. I had two things that that's all that matters to me, because I think that you've got to to actually meet someone in the first place, you've got to have some commonality, and then just being loyal and telling the truth are important to me. My mum had 16 things criteria that you had to meet to be a friend, and she had 28 things you had to meet to be a companion, right? Now, the chance of finding someone to meet those things, pretty impossible.
Yeah, and that was why she struggled, because she had that many boxes to tick that nobody could fulfill that. And so Nick went on to explain to her, look, these are all your criteria. You'll have some friends that will have 8 of those, and then you'll have to find another friend who has a different 8, because not everybody's going to tick those boxes. And I think a lot of us go through life feeling disappointed that not everybody fulfills our criteria. And that's okay. Nobody has to fully match our criteria. We go as close as we can. And then if you, like Nick, you and I, Nick, we probably didn't have identical criteria, but we had a lot criteria that was mutual. And then the other things we kind of adapted and moulded.
But
and
we talked about it. We talked about it. And that's something. And if someone's not meeting your criteria, then how can they even try and meet it if you don't tell them there's a problem?
Right. So I'm going to throw a curveball here, right? So that we're talking there about friendships and relationships, and we can choose friends, we can choose relationships, but what we can't choose is family. And and from our therapy, from workshops, what we see time and time again, and we've been doing workshops now for over 20 years. We've been doing therapy for over 20 years, and it never changes. One of the most problematic things in people's lives, and one of the most sort of impactful things when people feel unhappy, it comes down to family. Yeah. And look, let's,
Can I sum that up in one word?
I would just like to just put a disclaimer here. Of course, there are many people, ourselves included, us as a family of 4, I wouldn't change anything about anybody who sat around this table. I'm talking more extended family. And so, yes, now you can summarise.
And the problematic word for that is obligation. And that's where it comes in, because when you feel obliged to do something, there's always an element of resentment. And that obligation comes from blood being thicker than water, so they say.
Yeah, but obviously.
I think the biggest thing is that you choose your friends, and if a friend really isn't working out, eventually you can distance yourself from them. The friendship won't work out, or as a family, you're forced together. You can't get out of that. So maybe just appreciate the fact as well that, especially with extended family, you might not choose them as a friend, really, but you have to be around them just because they're family.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
And that's fine.
But that falls into the obligation.
Well, yeah, it does. I'm just putting it in different words, I guess.
Yeah, but I think that, right, okay, so you wouldn't have them as friends, and I think you sat around the table at Christmas time and you're civil to one another and you're kind to one another, you play a board game, whatever. All that is great. I'm not talking about that.
Don't play Monopoly, because people argue
that is
Monopoly.
a big, Monopoly's
That's not going to help.
No,
anyway, carry on, sorry.
However, I'm talking about that obligation, that beyond that obligation that we've got to go shopping together. You've got to do this. You've got to take me there. You've got to babysit. And that
I think as well,
is a no.
when you, to parents as well, I mean, obviously we don't feel this yet with you two, but you know when like parents need care and I think,
Look at that.
Yeah, well,
Hunter.
We'll find a home for them. Don't worry about that. All right.
honestly, throw me in a sketch.
Yeah.
To be fair, we did see once when we were in America on holiday, we saw an advert. It was the best thing ever. Do you remember it?
Yeah.
For a retirement village in, where was it? It was a state in like North America, like the
No, I
north
thought
of North.
I thought it was Florida.
I thought it was just above. Maybe it was Florida. No, we were in Florida when we watched it. But anyway, it was a retirement. We need to find out. We need to get this information. It's
It was
important.
Florida.
It was a retirement village, right? But it was like where they have all these programs. It was meant to be like the best retirement village in America.
Sign
and
me
they
up.
had, listen, there was women there in their 80s doing cheerleading. Do you remember
Yes.
them swinging
Yeah,
their
I do remember
batons
that now.
round? And I said to Hunter, I went, Mum would love it there.
I would.
Honestly,
I mean,
you
not
would.
yet.
Yeah.
But
You were
put
too
me
young
there
right now.
Yeah.
You won't
no,
get in.
put me there. I'm
But
happy.
that aside, so anyway,
They
it's
were on
fine.
tour, weren't they? As
Yeah,
cheerleaders. I remember
they were
it.
famous
There's a film.
cheerleaders.
And there's a film been made about that.
Anyway, but so we've got things in place for
Yeah.
you. Don't
Sign
worry.
up
Anyway,
for it.
There are plans in motion.
yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah. Just contact them, get the
Yeah,
leaflets, the
yeah.
information we need. No, but my point being is, I think that with care of parents is a real one. You know that we hear in therapy loads because people feel guilty that they feel, all to siblings actually. So, for example, like an older sibling with younger siblings, or someone with parents that need care or need help. That it's kind of like they feel indebted to their parents because their parents gave birth to them. So it's kind of like, I feel like I've got to care for my parents because they had me. So it's my, they brought me up.
See,
so it's my responsibility now to care for them.
See, I have a slight different view on that. My view is this. Look, yes, if you have children, you would hope that they would look out for you. But you don't have children for that reason. You don't sign a contract.
I agree with you. I'm just saying that's why people view it.
But it comes down to, and this is the big thing here, is that I would hope that I would be a good enough parent for you to want, that I've earned your love and care. And that's the difference. If I treated you badly, if I spoke down to you, if I made your life a misery, if I neglected you, I would not. I don't think that you should feel obligated to look after me. And this is something that I feel quite passionate about. And I know that a lot of people might say that I'm really selfish and that I'm only thinking about myself. But look, I don't care if you're my next door neighbour. I don't care if you're my partner. I don't care if you call yourself a friend or you're a close family member. If you don't treat me right, if you don't treat me with love and respect, then I don't think you deserve to be a part of my life. End of. And I know that sounds really, and I know that, like I said, a lot of people might look at me and go, that's really selfish.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. I don't think that we should feel obligated to have to look after people, to have people in our lives. Of course, listen, I would love to be like the Waltons, where everybody is all together. That would be an ideal. I love that. I love the thought of community and family. But if somebody is hurting you through their actions and through their words, then you allowing that is like bullying yourself because you're hurting yourself. You can see the pain they're causing you. So why continue that self-harm?
So just looking at basics, number one, you didn't ask to be born. Right, that's and a lot of people don't really see that, but you didn't ask to be born, and therefore you're not obligated to anyone because all parents wanted the children in some way, so that you didn't ask to be born, so you're not obligated. And the second thing is we've got one life, and in the scheme of things, it's quite a short period that we are on this earth, and we deserve to be happy. Everyone deserves to be happy, and if there's anyone taking an element, and even a small element of happiness away from you, then don't have them in your life. We deserve to be happy, and the happier we are, the happier the people around us will be.
Yeah.
And that's true actually, because then actually you could be impacting and damaging relationships with, say, your children or other people around you if you're being affected by those negative ones.
Exactly. And there is like a knock on. So if you allow people to pollute you, because that's how it feels, if you allow it to be polluted, then you can't be that kind, happy, upbeat person. So whereas if you're around good people or you feel good about yourself, then I actually think that has a positive impact, because when you're around good people and you're happy, then that happiness then reaches out to the people that you live with, to the people that you care about.
As well, if you're in a position where someone really needs you as well, if you're happy and you're in a better place, you can be better placed to help that person if you really need to, than if you were down and if they were polluting your environment, I guess, as well.
I feel very privileged that both of you, Liv and Hunter, that want to spend time with us because there's an obligation. I don't want you to do anything through obligation. You know, I feel grateful that you want to spend time with us because you want to be around us.
And we also feel grateful that you're already looking for a very upbeat, modern retirement community.
So I've just been Googling while she were dealing with that. I've just been Googling. So they're called the Sun City Palms.
Oh.
And they're in Arizona.
Oh.
It's hot in Arizona,
That's
isn't
not
it?
too hot for them.
Yeah,
The Sun City Palms. Oh, they're so cute. The Sun City Palms.
Right, so
There is a film about that.
sign your mum up. But anyway,
What are you going to be doing?
Sorry?
If I'm
Well, you
signing-
can't-
I don't know.
You can't be in the
I
Sun
think
City
it was
Palms.
there was mainly women there. I don't know.
No, that's
No,
just
it
in
can't
the
Right,
the children's.
but anyway, just talking about being happy, because happiness is very, very, very important. And you know, I'm pleased that we brought you both up to look at happiness over anything else. And I'm going to share a little story about Hunter, because we had a workman that came to see us. And here we go. Well, we had a workman that came to see us, and he was quite grumpy, and he was going through some difficulties at the time. And Hunter decided, how old would Hunter have been? About 3?
About 3, yeah.
Right. He just thought, I'm going to cheer him up. And at the time, we had another workman in the house who was doing some painting. And Hunter was helping him paint. Then Hunter disappeared with the paintbrush and a bit of paint. And then the next thing I heard was this commotion, and the painter came over and said, Nick, you got to look at this. You know, I don't know how I'm going to deal with it. And I'm like, what is it? What's going on?
I remember that. We all traipsed outside.
We all went outside.
You, me, and the decorator.
Right. And we looked at the other workman's car.
The grumpy workman's car.
The grumpy workman's car. And Hunter had painted a smiley face on his door.
And we're not talking like plate size. We're not talking like... We're talking the size of a tyre. It was huge.
On the door.
It
was massive, but it was very smiley. And he was saying, I just don't know how I'm going to get that off. And I said, well, look, he's still in the office, so get it off quickly. He might not know anything about it. But anyway, he managed to get it off.
Do you remember doing that, Hunter?
Yeah.
Can you remember what was your thinking behind that?
Just that. I think that
Just wanted to cheer him up.
I just thought it'd be a nice gesture.
And do you know what, Hunter? I've got to say, I now wish we wouldn't have wiped it off, because it came off pretty easily. So we could have left it on there for him to see it, because he's still grumpy.
Yeah. And you're just saying, people pay thousands for detailing and decorating their car. Did it for free. Didn't even want a tip, did I?
I do remember that though, because I remember you coming in and being like, we don't know what to do, because like it's technically vandalism, right? Yeah. So we want to shout at him, but then we don't want him to get into vandalism. We need to tell him off. But at the same time, like I remember you saying to him, Hunter, why did you do that? And he went, I just wanted him to be happy. And it was like, how can you shout at him when he didn't know?
I know, and that's a good example as well of how we all see the world so differently, and something that one person might see as an act of vandalism in this case, and I'm not condoning it in any way, but there was an act of kindness meant, and the grumpy person may not have actually seen it for the kind gesture that it was, but we do see
it's
the world
quite a nice thought to sometimes look at the world through a child's eyes and think,
that's true.
you know, with that innocence.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I think it's time to sort of start to look and think about some tips and things moving forward for people who are listening, who are finding that they've got relationships, whether that be, you know, a loving, you know, a partnership, like a relationship, whether that be a family relationship, friends, neighbours, work colleagues, and they find them very toxic or unbearable. They find that they're like literally draining them of every ounce of positivity and happiness and not sure where to go. So I think that we should have a little communal chat on to add to our handbook of happiness tips to share.
I think the most important thing is that people don't blame themselves, because I think that's, as we were saying before, the big sort of general problem that we fall into is blaming ourselves. And, you know, constantly I hear people saying to us things like, you know, I've been through, I don't know, 3 relationships now and I still can't find someone, and so it must be me. I must be the common denominator, or you know, I just can't seem to keep a friend, or whatever it might be. We hear these things, and I think that we so take that personally, and what we have to realize is that, you know, as you said before, our criteria is just different, and it might just be that you found people that didn't match up with your criteria, and actually the fact that you've walked away from those is a compliment to you. It's not that you've not been able to hold down those friendships, it's actually that you've said enough's enough, and I don't want to tolerate that, and that doesn't fit. And I think there's a fine line between what you were saying before about looking at your criteria and not having too many, because you can't have, like you said before, you know, 16 criteria and expect someone to meet all that. But equally, if you have no criteria, you end up falling into this trap of meeting people, whether that be in relationships, friendships,
compromising your criteria, compromising your standards,
who let you down. You know, this is what Hunt said at the very beginning of the episode, when you trust someone and you think they won't let you down, and they do. And why do we do that? Because we look at them through our own eyes and we expect them to treat us as we would treat them. And that doesn't mean that it's our fault when they don't do that. So, you know, you might go into a relationship and think, well, I'm a very loyal, trustworthy person, so we expect the other person in that relationship to also be loyal and trustworthy. And therefore, when they aren't loyal, they aren't trustworthy, we then think, oh, why am I, you know, why would they not be that person for me? Why would they not be loyal to me? Am I not good enough? I mean, look, when people get cheated on in relationships, what do we go to? Oh, I'm not good enough. Why? I mean, it must be me that there was the reason I got cheated on. No, that person just was not able to be a loyal person to anyone. That's who they are. It was never about you. And I think that's so important, you know, to consider, rather than looking at it from what have I done wrong? What's wrong with me? Looking at the other person and maybe, you know, what's their criteria? What's their upbringing? What's their experiences?
So moving forward, sorry, Hunter. So moving forward, looking for clues is an important factor. So what I mean by that is, you know, if you're looking for a relationship, for example, and you meet someone, how long were they in their previous relationship? What was that all about? You know, if they've been in a relationship for 5 years and then they found out it didn't work or someone cheated on them, then what you're looking for really is stability. You know, looking at their parents, how long were their parents married? Because, you know, parents are a big influence to, you know, to our values and beliefs. So looking, what I suppose the clues are, looking for stability. How long you've been in your job? If you've got someone who, you know, who changes job every few months, then you know that they're looking for something, and the loyalty isn't there.
If that's what you're looking for. So you've got to look for the things that you value and are important to you.
I was going to say, you can't blame yourself as well, because I mean, if you look at it, you know the situation, but only from your perspective. So it's like say if you're like in politics, if you look at an issue and you just take the viewpoint of one party or on like one side of the political spectrum, you're going to think, oh, that's true, because you've only know that one perspective, and all you've got is your perspective. But then if you can see the other side, you might see it in a whole different way and see that the circumstance is completely different. So it's really important to appreciate that in any situation, any friendship, if you feel like someone's betrayed you or there's not abuse of trust or whatever it is, you've only got your side and you have no idea the circumstances in their life as well. And so automatically you're always going to go swing over to one side, and not because that's the only.
And it's interesting you said that about
side you've got.
We don't know about the other person's side. I remember an event with you, Liv, when you were at school and you had a friend and they royally let you down.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
And again, you know, that was awful because you were such a loyal friend.
Yeah. And that absolutely broke me at the time because of my criteria. And I expected that person's criteria to be the same as mine. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what we do. So in that situation, I expected loyalty and I didn't get loyalty. And what actually happened was that was someone that was meant to be my best friend when we were in high school, and loved her to bits. Everything was great. And then I thought everything was great anyway. And then I found out that, short story is her parents had gone out of town. She'd had, it sounds like a a plot of a film, doesn't it? Parents are going out of town. She had a house party and invited all these people over, and I wasn't invited, and I found out about it, and that it was happening. I found out that it was happening, and I thought, well, she's my best friend, why have I not been invited? And I sort of rang her or left her a voicemail and said, you know, I'm really upset. Can we talk about it? Have I done something wrong? Have I hurt you? And I later found out from someone else that the voice recording was played in front of all the people there. They all laughed at me. They all humiliated me, all sort of like, you know, whatever it was said, and that then obviously got fed back to me. Do you know that she was doing this, that, the other? And they were all laughing at me.
And in the moment, you did take that personally.
Of course I did, yeah, absolutely. Which, you know, again, if it's so much easier said than done, and we know that it is easier said than done. And in that moment, of course, I took that personally. I felt horrific. You know, someone that was meant to be loyal and stood by me and be my best friend.
Can I say that humiliation though is something that is hard to shrug off, because
absolutely.
It is, of course.
You know, I understand what happened, but the worst bit of that was, you know, was playing that recording and people laughing at you.
Yeah, totally. And I should just say, by the way, because I mentioned my best friend before, Molly, it's not Molly. It's not the same person, totally different person.
We all love Molly. Molly, it's not you if you
but no, someone that I went to school with. But yeah, so she was meant to be my in-school best friend. And yeah, that situation was horrific. And so I did blame myself. And now, as an adult, I know that I can't blame myself, and I've got more of a perspective on it. As a therapist as well, that really helps because, you know, in our job, we have to look at everyone's perspective, and that really has helped me. And, you know, looking at it from another perspective, the underlying story of what actually went on there is that, you know, she had a lot of things going on in her life. She just was desperate to have friends herself. And, you know, I think actually in a way she actually got taken advantage of by a group of popular girls that wanted someone to have a house party. They found out that her parents were going to be away, and sort of said, you know, pushed her into doing it. And she thought, oh, I just want to get in with them. I'll be cool. I'll have loads of friends. And so her need for friendship and to have loads of people around her liking her was greater. That was more important to her than her need to be loyal to me, where I couldn't give her all these friends.
But
you know?
she didn't do the party just to hurt you. She did the party. She knew that it was going to hurt you, to be fair. But
which is why she tried to hide it.
Which is why she tried to hide it. And only because her low self-esteem meant that she was looking to get in with this group of people. And so, yeah, look.
And I'm sure she would have hoped that I would never find out, right? Yeah. She never wanted to hurt me. And equally, why did she laugh at me, right? Because that's awful. But I don't think I could be wrong here, but I don't think that was led by her. I'm sure that she got kind of attention and support for kind of being like, oh, you know, what's going on? Why is Liv not here? Whatever. And she's just joined into that to try and get that, what she needed in that situation.
So
it wasn't personal.
Not her fault. Essentially,
no. But it's hard to view it that way.
Even though it's not her fault, the pain's still the same.
But I think what we're bringing this back to, though, is that everybody has a motive, and that motive might not necessarily be to hurt you. That's what we're saying here, and that's something that's really important. But we do take it personally.
And we think it's us, and we think we're the reason why we couldn't maintain that. For example, I could have very easily looked at that and gone, I must be a rubbish friend because the second she got other friends that, you know, they were better than me, and they all laughed at me, and I obviously was the one that, you know, wasn't good enough. But actually, no, I just wasn't a popular girl. I was a bit of a nerd, a sociable nerd, but I was a bit of a nerd, and I couldn't give her that because I wasn't interested. I was, you know, so focused on getting into Oxford and my uni and my work that I didn't really have that friendship group she was looking for, and that's just all it was.
And I think what Nick, you touched on about, wouldn't it be great if we could look at people, you know, and that we should look at people's sort of life and their relationships to be able to get a handle on what kind of friend relationship they would be. And that's what I was going to say, exactly that. You know, it'd be great, wouldn't it? If we're going to employ somebody, we wouldn't think twice about asking for a CV, writing for references. And that's what we're sort of saying when it comes to friendships and relationships. I remember, Hunter, at you quite recently, well, not that recently, but at uni, there was one particular friend who got very intense with you very quickly and then just kind of seemed to drop you like a stone, and you were really upset by that. And I remember my advice to you was, that just might be their remit. That just might be their friendship criteria. They may have lots of friends that they get very intense with, then they drop them, but they kind of keep them on the periphery. And I think really that's what's happened.
And I think there was a lot of external factors as well, just like what happened in Liv's case. It was the same kind of thing. There was a lot of external factors that I now appreciate and realise.
But again, you wouldn't have that sort of knowledge of those external factors.
And at the time I went straight to, it's my fault. That's because I just saw it from my perspective.
Which is the natural thing to do. But what we're urging people to do is to question that and see the bigger picture.
So
we don't take it personally.
Absolutely. So I'm now pulling together this handbook for happiness. You guys have given tips. Is there anybody else before I give my mammoth tip?
I would just like to say, just remember that, one, we naturally take only our perspective. Another one is that we're really bad at reading people as well. So if we think we know what someone's going to do and why they've done it, and likelihood is we don't. But also, just to add to your shoe analogy, which I think is really important, and especially with the criteria.
I love my shoe analogy.
Is I think one of the really important piece of criteria, at least for me anyway, is not necessarily just loyalty, but also just don't take people for granted. Is basically what I'm trying to say. Like you have that pair of shoes that sits by the door, they're really comfortable, and you put them on, you slip them on, you go out, and you don't even think about it.
Like Crocs.
And yeah, I guess, yeah. And sometimes you can get caught up trying to make new friends with the newest pair of shoes, trying to get we see, oh, they're really nice. Let's add them to my collection. But there's always that one or two pairs or however many it is that you kind of slip on and forget about and just kind of take it for granted. But really, don't take them for granted.
Like that, drop them in a text now and
exactly.
again.
But those shoes have been on so many adventures with you. Always make you feel comfortable, and it's just so easy to overlook them. But don't, you know, those friendships.
Give your Crocs some love.
Exactly. Those comfortable shoes can be the ones that really add the most to your life. And just because they've been there for a while doesn't mean they're any less valuable. And really, they can be the most valuable.
Totally agree.
What we're saying is love and embrace those that deserve it, and distance yourself from those that don't. There is no obligation. You don't have to be around certain people just because you don't. And I think for my advice in our handbook to happiness in regards to relationships, whether that be a partnership, whether that be a friendship, whether that be a neighbour or a work colleague, my advice would be always start with communication. Give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Let them know how you feel. Be careful about your delivery. You know, don't go in aggressive, go in, look, you know, you're a lovely person, whether you believe that or not, just to soften it. But when you did that, it upset me. Have I done something that maybe you misunderstood, or is there something going on that I can help you with? That's a great place to start. Again, if nothing changes, then nothing changes. So step 2, try a different approach. If it's a grumpy neighbour, for example, perhaps pull the bins out for them on bin day as an act of kindness, just to do a little bit of something to help them to feel that little bit better. You know, do write your criteria so that you know what it is that you're looking for and what is important to you, and ultimately appreciate and remember. And I've probably said this on another podcast, but I'm going to say it again because it's absolute fact, and that is that there's only one person that is going to be with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and all your life, and that is you. And the relationship that matters most is that relationship with you. Self-appreciation, realization that you deserve to have only people around you who help you to grow, who support you, who nourish your world. I was
going to say, just add that very quickly. Be genuine to yourself as well about your criteria, because if someone doesn't work for you, you're not going to be as happy. Whereas if you find the people that really mesh with you and are really good friends, you'll be happier. You can spread more happiness and joy, and you'll add so much more to those people's lives if you get along with them and find the right people.
So, and lastly, I'd like to add that, so looking at your friendship criteria, what is important to you, making a list of that, and as Eva said, then when you find someone, looking, you know, opening the communication channels, talking about everything. If they do something that upsets you, right at the beginning of the relationship, don't leave it until something's like built up, you know, and then you explode and then the relationship's over. Do it right at the beginning, but also create a criteria list for yourself, because you know, for you to be a good friend, are there some things that you should be working on yourself to make yourself a better friend? Like, you know, I said before, I open text and I read it, and I can have a lovely text and feel really nice about it, and then I don't go back to it straight away. So for me, I would add on my list that I'm not going to open text anymore. I'm going to leave them unread until I can read it and go straight back.
And so I guess all that is left to say is thank you for your friendship. Come and listen to us anytime. As your friends, if you need a little bit of support and nourishment in your world, we'd love you to carry on listening to our podcast and take lots away from it. We really hope that you have found today's episode interesting and that it's been thought-provoking and will help you to make better relationships to benefit you moving forward.
And not to blame yourself, because if you actually have walked away from a relationship that isn't good enough, then you should be very proud of yourself for acknowledging your worth.
Big congratulations from all the Speakmans to you if that's
absolutely. And very lastly, if you want to smile today, have a Google of the Sun City Poms, because they're very cute with their little cheerleading. Love it.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone. We really appreciate it. You take care. Thanks so much for joining us. Wherever you're listening to this podcast today, do be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and we'd be incredibly grateful of a 5-star review.
Oh, and don't forget to recommend our podcast to your family and friends.
And if you'd like to have a look at some more free resources, take a look at our website, nickandeva.com.
If you want to drop us a question, we'd love to hear from you. Send it to admin@speakman.tv.
And you can follow us. We're at The Speakmans on all social media platforms. On YouTube, we're Handbook to Happiness Pod. If you are struggling, do be sure to speak to your general practitioner. And all that's left to say is that we appreciate you spending time with us today.